Hello and welcome everyone to the LPL Summer Grand Finals as I finally get a lineup, Xiaogu taking on LGD. My name is Julian Patriot Time Car, and joining me tonight are both Zach Rusty Pie and Jake Spawn Tiberi. Gentlemen, going to be a great final tonight. How are we both feeling?
Feeling good. Cannot wait to get into this best of 5 series. It's going to be massive between these two teams, the rookies and the chess masters.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to getting into this best of 5 set. And I think the real feel-good story right now is no matter who wins LGD, they get through to Worlds, PYL's first berth there, and QG in their first split have made it all the way to the finals.
Yeah, really impressive from both sides, to be honest. And, LGD, despite already making Worlds, probably still going to want to make sure they get the crown this time. Got one game, basically one fight away in Spring versus EDG, but they're hungry, especially PYL. Always wants to prove himself here. Imp's already won a couple titles, but might as well add LPL there as well.
I'm glad that you brought up PYL as well, because he's going to Worlds now, finally, irrespective. As you mentioned, he will be going there. But, of course, in their nature as LGD and every Chinese team is to be the best and to actually come first, not just make it to Worlds. So more on the line than just Worlds.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's an LPL split. And you always want to add things to your resume as players. It just makes them more attractive. They've got a very good lineup from top through to bottom right now. And it's about building momentum, making sure they have that confidence as a team heading into arguably the biggest event. Not even arguably, Worlds is huge. Yeah. So we'll see how those guys go with that. But over the other side of the rift, QG, they've started to really turn it on, I think. And I was even surprised that they were able to get here. I thought that they would be figured out in a best of 5 set, but they certainly have risen to the occasion and certainly proved that they're an admirable opponent.
And it's funny because as well, it just feels like they haven't really changed very much. Like they've done one thing, they came onto the scene. They're clearly very good at getting aggressive with their jungler and team fighting. Nothing has changed.
I guess that's the beauty behind Xiaogu is the fact that they may be super linear. They may only have one style, but they make that work to the point where they win games and they win team fights when they're down 10,000 plus gold. They do have one style, but that one style that they have just seems so effective that is essentially how they got here today.
Yeah, it certainly is. A lot of it does revolve around their jungler, Swift. I'm sure we'll take a look at him a little bit later on in the show. But what he was able to do in the first couple of games against Invictus Gaming really pulled the wool over their eyes. I don't think Invictus were expecting such an aggressive performance to come out of a team-fighting team. Swift was all over them from like 3.5 minutes in the game. So you just think if they're able to bring something similar, stick to the team fighting, but add a tweak to it. Maybe some earlier aggression, maybe some objective control in there. They're a very good chance to win today.
It's funny to consider that the team was built around TNT originally as well, and how quickly that has changed to be entirely Swift.
Well, the thing is that Swift on Nidalee is certainly that assassin, but also has a fairly good attack steroid and also pushes down turrets really well. So even though he was a person making a lot of the moves, TNT's positioning was still pretty spot on. Yeah. They're happy to have him as the positional carry, and he does absorb a little bit of gold right now, especially in the playoff series. So we'll see whether he's able to go up toe-to-toe with probably the best AD carry in the world right now in Imp.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest thing for Xiaogu in general is that all their players are playmakers. They can all go big. It's usually Swift, Doinby sometimes with a creative pick, doing something smart, or even just all-out aggression from TNT. Even if Xiaogu always get to the same destination, they have many different paths they can get there. They can go aggressive from the jungle. They can go aggressive in bottom lane. They can carry from top, mid. Yeah. They can do crazy stuff like Xiaogu. Even if they want to get to a similar point, they get there in a lot of different ways, and they have done so all season.
Yeah, and of course, the point is almost similar to the unlimited potential side, just to a more refined extent, is that team fighting stage where they just feel so very superior. But to contrast that, and the way that you can compare them individually against LGD, it feels like on paper they've almost met their match.
Yeah, so LGD is a really hard team to categorize because we call them the chess masters. Their micro play is amazing, but then you look down their role and they've got people like Akon, Godvi, PYL and Imp, and they're so good at a mechanical level as well. So the fact that they are known for a macro team just speaks testament to how well the team is run in itself. And the fact that they don't lose lane often, they always get the best of lane swaps especially, is just going to be such a scary thing to have to go up against because this is a team that completely dismantled EDG on their way in. Yeah. And EDG hadn't lost in 3 weeks. They were looking unbelievable, and LGD convincingly beat them.
Yeah, and for me, that was just LGD playing their style. Like we talk about Xiaogu being this team that only does one thing. LGD can do a bunch of different things, but they often do the same thing. And the big benefactor is Imp. Every single game, TBQ is set up to farm and Imp is set up to carry.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing about Imp is that they recognize, does he need farm or does he need levels? So they're happy to leave him by himself if he needs levels and he freezes out waves. If he needs farm, they fast push, get him some turrets, and really get him through the early game to the point of mid-game power, especially when he's on the likes of a Cogmore at the moment. So they play two styles very, very successfully. The biggest pin for me against EDG was the fact that TBQ went berserk and was able to carry out of nowhere.
Yeah, it really was here. As you can see, all the fans sitting in the arena. No punches being pulled here as far as opening ceremonies go.
Wouldn't be a Chinese final without all of the awesome.
These two teams just on their own, set to deliver, that's for sure.
恭喜老干爹3比0挺入决赛，让我们恭喜 QG 黄金之路还差一步。
听着战斗的号角，带着热血和激昂，不负所望，你们应声而来。我们脚下的战场即将硝烟四起，这是一份关于坚持的信念。这是一场关乎荣耀的对决。今天，我们在这里为战斗呐喊。战火即将点燃，跟我一起冲向荣耀之巅吧！ Huge Reapers. Top V. Jungle Swift. Mid doing B. AD carry TNT. Support TCT. LGD Gaming. Support PYL. AD carry in. Mid got V. Jungle TBQ. Top Acro.
经济赛就离冠军就一步之遥了。其实我打 T 也蛮久，还没有拿过一个中国顶级赛事的冠军，这次就是我一个最好的机会。
我们2个韩国人加上我们3个人都是第一次走到这一步，就是 LPL 夏季赛决赛嘛，
十足的渴望拿下这个冠军吧。
저희 팀이 팬이 없기 때문에 좀 우승해야 팬이 좀 생길 것 같고
我觉得 QG 这个队伍对我们来说威胁性不大。
LGD 对我们来说是更有利的一个决赛的对手。
实力上可能不会有太明显的差距吧。Echo 还有 Flame 是2个强力的上单，而且非常有经验，对于我自己是个考验。
사실 잘 몰라서 사실 잘 모르는데 그 인프가 엄청 잘한다고 하더라고요.
对于我来说，我觉得是一种激励，因为我更想去战胜比较强烈的队伍。
只要把他们打野压制住，我觉得他们各条线都没优势。
컨트롤 싸움에서 이길 것 같고 버프 컨트롤이나 뭐 좀 스마이트 싸움에서도 좀 자신 있고 초반에 이득을 제가 TBQ 선수보다 많이 볼 수 있을 거라 생각해요.
你打野虽然很强，但是没有我强。
对手是敌人，我以前刚刚打过，没有输过。
LGD와의 경기에서는 비록 팀이 이기긴 했지만 가프이 선수한테 그 솔로 킬을 따이는 모습으로 아 이게 LPL 미드라이너의 그 실력이구나 장벽이구나 하고 느끼면서
在我看来的话，他是一个虽然比较强的中单啊，但是我觉得他依旧打不过。
5대5에 있어서의 능력은 제가 가프이 선수보다 더 낫다고 생각합니다.
그 선수 11을 안 하면 저한테 진짜 무지무지하게 죽을 것 같아요.
太去想克制对面，反而会误导自己。
主要还是要对于视野的掌控比较到位。觉得对他们2个组合，我们没有任何压力。
인프가偏向激进。
그렇게 한다고 쳐도 게임을 말아먹을 정도로까지는 무리하지 않아요.
这个决赛将会是我第一个 LPL 冠军。我们会很快速的3比0平带走。
在决赛的时候会利用 BP 来针对狼人捏。
我觉得他们用不用实力都打不过我们。
결승전에서 이길 수 있는 확률은 제가 보기에는 뭐 지금 기량이 그대로 이어진다면은 큰 변화 없다면은 99% 정도로 생각하고 있습니다.
퓨지 바텀이랑 지금 한다고 치면 제가 라인전에서 더 만약 저희랑 라인전 한다고 치면 제가 솔로킬 한 3번 딸 것 같아요. 라인전 끝날 때부터.
노간대 짜요. LPL 赛季赛冠军，我们真大对吧？
Welcome back, everyone, to the LPL Grand Finals. What a way for the players to enter their way into the arena. And already, a final that was already going to be hype here between these two teams just got a whole lot better.
I feel like the best part as well is the Xiaogu Reapers, as they are so aptly named, making their way on the stage
in dark
robes and white face masks, almost personifying their team name.
Yeah, you'd think that is the case, and then you saw Akon's look, Akon and Godvy's look, and I was like scared. Godvy looked like a man possessed.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's sort of indicative of how he might play in this series as well. Certainly something that we didn't quite get to when we went over LGD, but he's an insanely good mid lane. This mid lane matchup's crazy.
Godvy's crazy, and you know, the thing about LGD is you kind of have to pick either a strategy or a person to target, and in the past that has been Imp. People throw the Coldmore and the Callista ban out there, and EDG, they gave him no respect, and he got Diana twice, and boy did he make them pay, especially in game number 3. So I want to see whether that is an adaptation, whether they're happy for Doinby to just play support mages and see if they can weather the assassin storm that is going to be thrown at them out of the mid lane, or whether they do attack his champion pool and see if they can get him on a control mage like the Orianna.
Yeah, and just basically what you said is they need to either target ban him or target ban Imp, but they could very easily ban one, annoy the other, you know, focus the lane in terms of actually playing the game. We'll see what they actually want to put in place, but if they try and focus Godvy at all, they're going to leave open these champions that are ban-worthy from Imp. So it's a big risk being against this side.
It certainly is. And the one thing that I will say about that is TBQ's gone back to earlier game jungle. So even if you try and camp out a lane, if he picks up something like Lee Sin, he has shown that he's a better counter ganker than he is ganker. He likes to be the second jungler there, see what he can get in a cleaning up kind of fashion. And if they do decide to camp the Imp lane, it's not even Imp that you have to go up against. It's like TBQ as well as PYL hanging out down there. And Swift, he's a fantastic jungler, but I'll be very interested if he could get through all of the defensive wards they put out early.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, and on the other side, I guess, for Doinby, a player that has played against phenomenally good mid laners in the LPL. Doinby is a good mid laner, don't get me wrong. I think he's a very good mid laner. but he's not really the best mid laner in the LPL. That's actually pretty tricky given the talent pool. But Doinby has proven time and time again, in any situation, he'll figure it out. He might not be the best 1v1 player, but he'll get his team where they need to be.
And this is Xiaogu personified, though, Doinby. No other mid laner could ever take Doinby's spot in this team because he is the team. He follows around his jungler. If he's winning the lane, he wins the jungle with his own lane, and then he just takes over the entire map. And no one else in the LPL really plays to that style. And I feel like this is the most important matchup. You look at across the board, LGD star players, Xiaogu, they've got the very important jungle matchup. But I think at the end of the day, it does come down to how mid performs. And if Godvy's kept down by Doinby, and if Doinby is unlocked by actually doing well.
Yeah, well, the thing is his patch. Like, it's arguably not Godvy's patch right now. The Yasuo is something that Godvy can definitely play to great effect. But when you look at how strong the likes of Lulu and Victor still are through their wave clear and being able to support their AD carries, Doinby should still be able to do fine in this matchup. I agree that if you look at a completely neutral 1v1 lane, it's probably going to go in Godvy's favor. But then you've got people running around the map being able to help you out on Doinby's side. Like, you've got Swift always invading. You've got a very clear person to follow if you do ever want to go on one of those journeys. So I think that QG, they play around their mid laner's strengths very well, and that is his ability to teamfight and just push out waves. He's never looking for the 1v1. He just wants to get the heck out of mid lane and try and help everyone else.
And I guess kind of an extension of that, because I like that you bring up the fact that the patch does suit him. And Godvy's a very flexible player. He'll sort of do whatever works. But he can't play hard carry, it feels like, as much as he used to be able to on maybe some control mages or the other bigger champions he was known for sort of early on in the year. So that's my other question is that, okay, if mid lane's a bit more of a farm fest, how important are these AD carries? Because you already know how good Imp is. So what about TNT and TCT there?
Yeah, well, I'll kick it off with Imp. He's the best in the world right now. He's an absolute monster. He's probably one of the better lane swap AD carries, and he's abusive in lane. Like, he will stand on his melee creeps. It used to be funny. We used to compliment Uzi for standing on range creeps with Caitlyn and abusing people. Imp just stands on the melees right now with the likes of Sivir, Kog'Maw, and just abuse earlier power spikes that no one else is able to take effect from. So I honestly think that in a laning phase, it's not QG's to their strength, but I think they try and just 2v1, because if there's, you know, when you look at getting V behind versus like keeping Imp down a little bit and trying to get TNT a bit more of a freer early passage, I think that's the case. Or they go Lucian and just try and outright win lane with something like Lucian Janna.
Maybe. I mean, I think in general, the theme of this series is going to be QG trying to contain Imp, because we know LGD will funnel as many resources as they have to make sure Imp gets the gold and gets the levels that he needs.
But the scary thing about that is they set up the rest on the map that well that you know they will always be able to farm two lanes. So they're never a single threat comp. They'll either run something like a Diana and be able to split push very well with it, or they will make sure that Acorn is absorbing a lot of CS by setting up slow pushes for his team. So because of their wave management and manipulation, they're never at the point where other teams have always had to run like solo AD carries.
And this is what makes LGD so good, again, as a team. Imp, really good in lane swaps, but LGD as a team, really good in lane swaps. They all capitalize on it. The side wave control, the vision, they put it deep, they make picks. Everything that they do is towards the end goal. And as you said, you know, I feel like it's Xiaogu's game to lose in the early game, but it's definitely LGD's game to win, because individually, if they can get the lane swaps, Xiaogu, they might go for the Lucian. They do have the preference at themselves on TNT. We'll see if they want to put that into effect or if they actually want to take the lane swap, because they like late game as well.
Yeah, I know they do. And I really want to hear your thoughts. Do you throw two bans at him? Straight up.
I think it depends on the side of the map you're on. So if you have first pick, you can throw two bans at Imp, maybe pick away something in the middle lane like the Victor priority. You know he's going to go for the Diana, so it's perfectly fine. But on red side, you have to ban Kalista because he's first pick. But do you go for the Cog? Do you go for the Diana, take it away from Godvy? Or do you prioritize maybe a particular top lane ban? Take something like Nara away from Acorn.
Yeah, because this is what I've been struggling with. I just don't know. QG are they pivot quicker than I thought they would, so they're able to change it up. I think the Nidalee prioritization in the IG series is definitely proof of that, because, you know, Swift was playing things like Gragas leading up to it, and then he had played a lot of Nidalee, don't get me wrong, but Gragas definitely was a priority for this team because of the team fighting prowess, and that was not the case at all versus Invictus Gaming. So I want to see whether they allow something to go through and like have something else in store for us in the bottom lane.
I mean, we were watching this earlier today. I was talking to you about this in particular, is the way that they run their drafting and how they have adapted very well to being in the game. So we were looking at the last game of that best of 5 series, and the way that they can seamlessly take picks away as well as get champions that they are looking for their own team comp is seamless, and it's a sign of a very smart and very on-the-fly adaptive team that Xiaogu could take LGD by surprise with if they get past 3 games.
And let's go top lane then, because we talked a lot about Akon, but I want to talk about V for a second, because again, same sort of issue here. Okay, they need to contain Imp. Good luck, but they'll figure it out. Probably a lane swap might be their best choice. But that hurts V a lot. He's not a bad lane swap player, but he's just not Akon. And he loves farm as well. Like when we talk about Xiaogu's big team fights, he's usually the one that's showing up with 250 CS at 30 minutes, being like, hi guys, how are you? Need a front line? I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean,
depends what he goes with.
Honestly, it comes down to how they play the lane swap again, because V is a low resource carry. So he's not actually known for getting that 250 CS and appearing with this massive horde of items and taking out the backline. The thing to contrast that with, though, is if he gets the farm, if they actually get standard lanes and he does well, then he can do that. And this is when Xiaogu actually teamfight the best. Otherwise, it's on the back of Swift. But if they get standard, if Swift can play a carry champion, things start to favor them. But it's not always a necessity.
Yeah, it isn't a necessity, and that's why I actually like V a little bit more than... Like, I understand he is a weak link of the team, definitely, but when he gets things like Hecarim, he is actually able to get a lot of CS that you wouldn't normally expect. I think that they'll go low econ on him, though. I think that he's going to be relegated to Maokai duty today. I think that it'll be a very big priority pick, especially if they have to let things like Kalista, like Kog'Maw go through the draft because they can't afford to throw that many bans at it. They're just going to look to tie him down on something. And I think that was even further proved in Game 3 when Doinby ran a LeBlanc versus Invictus Gaming, because if they're able to make it work, even though LeBlanc's travel time is changed, she does the same amount of damage once she arrives, and the second distortion's on your head anyway, so that doesn't take any time to appear. So if they can run that comp successfully with the Maokai, with the LeBlanc, take one person off, and then play the rest of the team fight the way that Xiaogu really like to, I think that that is a strategy that they can run either in a Game 2 or a Game 3 to steal a win for themselves.
So is it on Swift then? I guess Swift and Doinby is that pair. So we've identified the threat. The primary threat on LGD is Imp. So is it on the jungler and mid to, again, pick the team up in the early mid game and say, Imp, you have a massive target in your forward. We're coming straight at you.
Yeah, like it's always been on Swift. He's always been the biggest carry of the team, but there's a lot of threats on Xiaogu that go unnoticed. And again, if V gets that farm, if TNT has a good laning phase against Imp, I feel like there's multiple people that can carry it. Similar to LGD, they just get slept on a little bit more because you always look at the shining light of the team that has always been Swift. He gets the most gold compared to other junglers in the LPL besides Clearlove. I think he's second in that respect. So he can definitely carry, but that's because they're giving him prioritization. So if he goes back to a Gragas or something tanky, then they can always revert that back to V or TNT.
And I think that one thing you do have to point out is that Imp has this tendency. He's a beautiful AD carry to watch play, don't get me wrong, but every now and again, he does Imp things, like stealths on top of tanks with Twitch and unloads on front lines and weird things like that. TNT never makes a mistake in team fights. He's always the last person to die. He is so good at staying behind the front line that V, Swift provide. Even Doinby at times when he plays things like Nautilus mid lane and stuff like that. So I would expect for TNT, even if he gets a little bit behind, to still do so much with his resources. He always has. So if it gets to the situation where they get to draw up picket lines and go at each other 5v5, I don't think that it favors either side. I think that QG are that good in team fights that they might even have a slight advantage here. But LGD just never let you do that. They're always making you rush and engage because of a side minion wave. They're always pressuring over here while Acorn takes something on the top side of the map. So definitely going to be harder for Xiaogu to set up for those engages.
And you said this earlier, though, is the way that they can focus all of their resources and the fact that if TNT can get going, it would be massive, but so risky to do against Imp unless he does Imp things.
Well, let's take a look at Xiaogu now. We start in the top lane. It is V. Talked at length about these teams, but as you can see, lots of tanks in those last few games.
Started to pick up a bit of Gnar, but the most played, of course, Maokai and Hecarim, so can diversify his champion pool if need be, but seems content.
Yep. And now moving into the jungle, Swift, certainly the man we've said the most about on the team, not too surprising there, and Doinby, certainly the other rising star this split.
Yeah, and the Victor's going to be contested.
Yeah,
if they,
absolutely.
That's their key to drawing out games. If they get the wave clear, Victor or Lulu, something like that, where they can just keep stalling until the end, is only going to mean great things.
Yeah, and of course that contested Kog'Maw picks to move on to TNT. Expecting to see that be very popular in these drafts. And last but not least, down in the bottom side, just about anything, it's TCT.
The man who was basically picked to ensure TNT survives. No surprise, he's got a lot of Braum games in there because that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and the Braum's going to be huge because because we keep talking about this double wall composition, and Godby likes the Yasuo. I mean, he put it out the first time against Rookie, and then since then has always, it's at the back of your mind whenever you go into a pick ban phase. So being able to take away the Braum but not necessarily have to commit to the Yasuo if you are QG is going to be something that they can rely on quite heavily in the draft.
And the other question then comes back to Janna. While we're talking about champions that can, the double wall is potent for LGD. You don't see that coming out of Xiaogu because Doinb can't play the Yasuo. The Braum's always going to be there, but the Janna is the other default support champion that has a lot of peel and plays to these champions' styles really well, especially in laning phase.
Yeah, it certainly does. And Janna's just so good at being able to set up different kinds of team fights for your team. The big reset button, the ability to flank. She's actually a very versatile support, so and she's a good laner. Like, that's one of the biggest things about Janna. The shield is so frustrating to play around.
Well, if a Vayne wins lane because you've got a Janna, you're doing good things. So Janna, very good support. And, you know, Gragas Janna, probably the ideal Xiaogu team comp if they can ever get that.
That's the other thing as well, where all these big AD carries are flying around. Twitch, Kog'Maw, Vayne sometimes. Even Sivir gets a bit of extra help, and Janna really does boost all that up. But we're going to take a look at LGD now. Unsurprisingly, they'll start with Acorn, who's just gone off game after game.
It's funny because he actually has 2 Rise games in there, but this is a credit again to the forced bans against this side. He can actually play Rise twice.
Yeah, and there's TBQ now, the jungler. Honestly, much improved as the year's gone on. His player performance has been stellar.
Yeah, it certainly has, and the Lee Sin is looking fantastic out of TBQ, one of the better Lee Sin players in the league.
Yeah, now you can see Godby doing just about what he likes there with those last few picks. Lots of Diana there as a throwback to one of his old signature picks, but can play just about anything, and so can this man. But understandably, he's been sticking to the Kog'Maw.
Can play anything. The question is, what will they let him play?
Yeah. Misfortune.
Oh, not again. Not like last time, Spawn. As PYL going to round things out here. The Bard, really the only Bard player in the LPL, makes it look good as well. But Braum, Alistar, Nami, Janna, Kitchen Sink, whatever you want, PYL's going to play it.
Yeah, he certainly can. And why I like LGD at the moment is that their Lulu player, when they run the Lulu, is Acorn.
Yep.
So it allows Godby to play hyperscaling assassins. It allows Imp to position aggressively. And then Acorn's a get out of jail free card. Just because TBQ is a tank jungler, they don't want him on anything else. He doesn't have to play in Italy. Lee Sin, Gragas, that is all they need from him.
And even to that extent is that Acorn isn't the designated Lulu player because it was getting banned away from this side from Godby playing it to great success also. So there's the flexibility behind that is just unrivaled.
Yeah, it certainly is. In control mages right now are just really safe to run in either lane. Lulu's a lane bully in the mid lane. Give her a little bit of a longer lane, it gets worse, and able to pressure you under the turret. So we'll see if that man on your screen is able to pick it up in one of the first couple of games and punish V, who does like to go for things like the Hecarim.
I think it tells you a lot about a team where Lulu can be played in 3 different positions, is a key ban, and your AD carry is named Imp. That tells me a lot about how that team wants to play.
Jugger Imp.
Jugger Imp, yeah, pretty much. If you've done it on Twitch, they've done it on Kog'Maw, they'll do it on just about whatever they want.
Yeah,
This particular stat is actually not entirely accurate if you take into account Demacia Cup also. So their track record against each other, these teams, is 4-4. But for the purpose of the regular split of the LPL, it is 3-1 in favor of Xiaogu. But this is also 2 games without PYL.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to point out. Really important to note, PYL did not play in the first 2 games that these teams ran into each other. You see the blue side win rate for Xiaogu?
Pretty high.
Something that we talk about a lot of the time.
Yeah, really do here. As you can see, the jungler's being compared. Like we've said, Swift definitely the key member of this team. TBQ's been very much improved here for his side, and they're going to be key to the early games in particular.
LGD, being a lane swapping team and having that good of dragon control, is really just shows how well they play this map when they go up against other teams.
Oh, look at that roam success rate. You know these two like to get out of that mid lane.
And the fact that Doinb seemingly has a lesser success rate than Godby speaks volumes, given that how often Doinb is actually not in lane, whether it's a successful gank or not. He just doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, like the roam counter. Like, yeah, pretty close. They'll pack up and leave if they have to, but they've been left alone a lot. Again, when you lane swap, Godby gets left as you move into AD carries. Oh my god, Imp in your stats.
I love that there's a farming stat.
That's great.
That's great. So good. Lots of farm.
You can see gold share. Imp just does so much with what he gets given. 24% of the gold, but 29% of damage. 2% higher than TNT, who was a fantastic AD carry in his own right. And Imp, he just punishes any kind of behavior. I don't feel there's a good way to play against Imp at the moment.
It's an interesting stat to consider, though. 1% less gold, 2% more damage. Doesn't sound like a
I'll
crazy
take it.
amount, but if you look at the entire season, a percentage adds up.
And you can see Callista everywhere for a lot of these teams. And it makes sense, again, when Imp being the key player in LGD, don't really want to give anyone Callista, but in particular, not LGD's AD carry.
So the thing I want to point out here is the fact that LGD prioritize their jungle, because that is one tactic that has been useful against them. Ban out TBQ in the jungle, so they will most likely take a jungler in the first rotation of the draft.
You can see now Xiaogu's top picks here for the season, I believe. V's keeping it consistent. Lots of Malcolm, lots of Hecarim in that. Nah.
Yeah, actually 17 games on both, which is ridiculous. And it's actually a player that can play multiple champions. He just has the preference towards the Maokai and the Hecarim. So very interesting to consider.
And the Gnar doesn't look bad when you give him some credit. He's a really good initiator on that. Doinby, he's got the Kassadin up his sleeve. That's the interesting thing for me, whether we'll get to see a Diana versus Kassadin in mid lane.
Well, maybe, as Godvy's sneaking Diana in there with a couple of plays recently to bump that number right up here. But I mean, lots of Sivir, lots of Vayne. Haven't seen too much of them recently, but are always a threat, especially with that cock.
You mentioned Godvy, of course. The Victor, probably #1 priority for both of these teams in at least the first pick. I don't think it'll hit a ban, but most played speaks volumes.
I like TBQ's Rek'Sai stat there as well. That is an unbelievable amount of Rek'Sai games. And again, it's just a comfort thing for him.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the fact that TBQ is able to get good success rates on the gank-heavy junglers as well does suit the fact that as they come in, because we were saying they had to lane swap and pick him Sejuani every game at this point last season. Definitely has evolved as a player.
And I think counter-ganking has certainly been his new calling card, especially in playoffs. That he won't always be aggressive. He'll, again, happily play around his team, use those roams, but you can bet if you're ganking a lane, he's probably right behind you.
And look at this. LGD averaged 2,000 gold ahead of QG and 3,000 ahead of the rest of the league. That's a fantastic stat at 20. Have to see whether they're able to abuse that early game that they generally get. That's an early couple of turrets that you would have to think coming out of the lane swap heavy team. But QG, we keep talking about it time and time again, and it's because I think it's going to be a trend this game. Let's say 7,000 gold behind at 30 minutes. You can't count them out of it. They'll always come at you. They're the sledgehammer. They just kill you once and then take the map.
And even then, if they are that behind, sometimes they'll just find the fight. They're that good at it that they can still win. We've seen QG do some pretty miraculous things, and it started, honestly, this season 2-0ing LGD. So it's nice to see them both here in the finals.
It did start in the very first week for them also. So continuing that trend through, they do have an even match rate against each other now, but maybe the odds have tipped a bit. It's nice to see Xiaogu get some best-of-5 practice actually in.
Yeah, and they've looked much better than I thought they would after Demacia Cup against IG in particular. That was a long and arduous series for both teams, but the tenacity that QG showed, and I think they eventually sort of gave away and showed a bit more flexibility. That's said a lot to me, especially going into a long best-of-5 versus a team like LGD.
Yeah, I think that the tenacity both teams showed in that best-of-5 QG versus IG really set them up for good runs afterward. You saw IG were able to even take it to EDG. And now the fact that QG are coming off that with all the momentum, that would be like, we beat a team that were able to top EDG as well. So went on more even playing field than would have otherwise be suggested from LGD's sweep of the reigning champions.
Certainly, and EDG not being here is probably the other big story. These two teams have certainly earned their spot, but it's crazy to see a final with, honestly, just so many new faces.
No EDG, no clear love. This is Berserk. I have no idea what's going on.
He's gone somewhere as well,
yep.
falling off the wagon there with OMG.
I had mentally prepared myself for the call. I don't think anyone was prepared for a lack of EDG, lack of clear love in this. But one thing that we do need to point out, for people watching that are wondering where the recent success of LGD has come from, it took a pentakill and Baron for EDG to put a nail in their coffin last playoffs. Def went berserk at a team fight and was able to turn that game around. So they definitely have been knocking on the door, and it's behind that a lot of that man on the screen. He looks very determined today, Godvy. Normally shares a little bit more of a smile with the camera, but he's all focused.
Not rookie level smiles, but definitely always shows some smiles. But today he is all serious. Definitely means business. So a scary thought to be up against him, and I would have hated to have been looking at him.
Yeah.
During that opening ceremony.
Doinby wouldn't have cared, man. Doinby would have laughed. You know what Doinby's like. He's the biggest troll ever, so.
He'll hide behind Swift anyway.
Yeah.
Well, again, continuing onto the Rift, we might see some of that, but Imp has been so good all year long. Like you said, took a lot for EDG to finally best LGD in that best-of-5, but if you want to think about this year, at least in China, as one of two halves, the first half was all deft. He was easily the best AD carry, even besting Imp by the end of that season. but the second half has certainly been all about Imp.
Yeah, I will run this storyline into the ground. Imp is amazing at the moment. Just watch him lane. Like, it's so scary because you don't want to lane swap against LGD because they're generally better than everyone else, and you don't want to lane against Imp. So, like, there are 0 choices left for you on the map right now if you are QG, and that's why I'm actually going to call something fairly early here. I think that Swift will go towards a Lee Sin in Game 1. I think that they're going to look for an early pressure jungle and see if they can pick on TBQ a little bit. It's tried and true. And, yeah, I reckon that's what Swift's going to go with, Nidalee or Lee Sin.
He does have the pocket Lee Sin, may come out.
He has a really good Lee Sin.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Nidalee's also been changed on this particular patch to be somewhat worse. She got tickled a little bit.
Yeah, what did we say? She got grabbed and then gently lowered further to the ground.
Yeah, was not directly hurt, but she's definitely got some changes. So we'll see if there's still actually that prioritization of the Nidalee also. We haven't actually seen these guys play on this patch yet.
No, and that's sort of the fun thing is both these teams are very creative, have great shot callers, strong drafting, very good players. It's sort of everything you'd want in a grand final. And if there's ever a time where things are going to go a tad pear-shaped, it's going to start now. Grand finals, game number 1 draft, as QG going to start themselves off on that blue side. And instantly, Diana Nidalee, get out of here.
And Yasuo follows. They have actually gone with a target Godv strategy here. And this is dangerous because the guy plays Orianna like no one else.
And this raises a question, though. Is LGD going to ban the Kalista, or are they going to leave both open? Up. Because right now, Xiaogu are targeting the mid lane of Godv. 2 of his champions gone. There's so much available.
So the thing is if you leave the Kalista up and they first pick it, Acorn can just lock in Maokai, and then you can run the Kog'Maw, and I feel that there's just as good scaling, but the answer on the other side of the map, and you can see Xiaogu, they saw it coming and just get it off the rift.
Yep, gonna ban that instead. It's actually 2 junglers banned from LGD as well, so picking on Swift on one side and Godv on the other, but Kalista gets the appropriate nod away.
And I like this out of LGD, because that doesn't affect TBQ's champion pool at all. He doesn't play Nidalee, he doesn't play Elise from what we've seen. Yeah. Gragas Rek'Sai only, they can keep throwing the real hard carry jungle bans out there.
Last ban mid laner there from LGD, gonna take away the Victor, and Xiaogu are gonna hover the Lulu. Do they dare to take this one away?
Well, I guess the better question is, do they dare not take this away? In saying that, if they pick the Lulu, they deny the Lulu Kog'Maw. And you have to assume that LGD are going to pick the Kog'Maw irrespective. So TNT has a preference towards that champion. I'm surprised they didn't pick it themselves.
And the other thing is that this actually allows TNT to run Sivir, which really helps V out on being able to get in the Kog'Maw if that is what Imp wants to play, and it is.
By the way, Rek'Sai's already locked in, and there's Kog'Maw going to join it. TBQ took about 2 seconds to lock that jungler in.
So right now, I think they run Braum Simmer. I think it's a really good disengage. They have the kite ability, and Lulu's going to help Sivir's late game damage out substantially through that help picks.
Yeah, they also don't reveal the hand of the jungler usually until last. It's generally a big surprise to see that. For the most part, this drafting is exactly what Xiaogu do every time. They pick mid, they pick top and support, and then they pick in the carries.
Yep, and there's the top lane. Maokai going to be the pick for V, and Braum's going to be taken there as well. Does leave open Janna potentially, but LGD, let's see what they select here for their 3rd and 4th.
Wouldn't be surprised by Alistair. It gives a lot of roam potential out of PYL in the early game, and I know we love seeing that. Also a lot of follow-up gank potential. If they have things like Gnar and Rek'Sai on the map, they're able to get at least 2 pieces of CC into most lanes. Will also help TBQ because Alistair responds really well to invades into your jungle. He's just got so much CC, and that's what they go with.
Yep, Alistair and Gnar going to be LGD's next 2 picks as they've got some considerations. So I'll likely give Godv that last pick, but Xiaogu, they have to round out their team comp here. Rusty mentioned Sivir. We'll see if that's where QG are thinking.
That is a big question. Or do they want to go for more the TNT route, which is go Lucian and try and win lane? That will be very indicative of a 2v2 or an attempted 2v2. But I do think Sivir's arguably better.
I think that you just make him play against the minion waves. That's something that Sivir does so well. Just being able to shove out, especially with melee support, because you get the Targons early on.
Wow. Oh, wow. What? Gragas, Vayne are their last 2 picks, and the Xiaogu lane shell game continues in game 1 of the finals.
So the Gragas is standard. This is Swift's most played coming onto the Rift. He's got a fairly good win rate with it as well. I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, Vayne, I think 3rd highest pick right now for TNT. He played it a little bit towards the back end of the season.
It's up there.
But I wasn't expecting him to take Vayne into Kog'Maw abuses Vayne in the lane. That's one of the hardest lanes because as soon as Sheen comes out, you can't get away. And if you hit the first ultimate, the stealth means nothing.
So are they making the assumption that they want to lane swap? That's what it feels like to me, is that Xiaogu don't want standard now. And you don't want to give Imp a free lane as a Kog'Maw, because he can get carried away with that. But in saying that, LGD's finished team comp. They're perfectly okay with the lane swap, and just most importantly, the fact that Godvi locked in that Orianna.
Yep.
I was going to question whether they had enough peel and support for Imp, because naturally, he's going to be in the front line, and they didn't really have direct peel for him. So Orianna actually facilitates this, and we'll see most likely a zone control style of Orianna.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned LGD's lane swap, because with 2 control mages, that's going to turn into a farm fest. Very hard to gank early game at least. Acorn's ranged, so it's a lot easier for him to farm. And Kog'Maw will go fine against the Maokai early game as well. So I think that Imp gets a 1v1 lane, and that gives him levels for his W and early itemization in that Trinity Force.
Yeah, we see almost always the same thing from LGD, at least when they open up series, is get Imp going, and he's back on Kog'Maw. Xiaogu are not going to respond to it just yet here, but they'll keep it nice and creative. Very tanky and very Vayne-centric, honestly. But let's go through the matchups to start things off. Maokai versus Na as V takes on Acorn.
Yeah, just a big tank battle going to be up in that top lane, but of course we're not actually expecting direct lanes, really.
Well, probably not here as the jungle matchup also lines up. This is a classic from this split. Gragas versus Rek'Sai. We move back to Control Mage land. Doinby taking away the Lulu, but Godby easy to take the Orianna.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit more damage will come out of the Orianna, especially the way Godby builds it, some movement speed through the early Alacrity boots and then Luden's Echo and craziness that comes out.
And of course, the late game carries wouldn't be a game without them here in the LPL. Braum Alistar for the supports, but Vayne Kog'Maw as the carries of choice.
At the end of the day, when you look at both of these team comps, they actually picked what they wanted for themselves. I think there was target bans, but they got standard team comps. So if Xiaogu can take it late, they're comfortable. But LGD feel like they're in their zone as well.
Yep, and that's the best way to start a series here. Game 1 of the Grand Finals coming right up. And welcome onto the Rift here for our first game of tonight's best of 5 as we determine the LPL Summer Champions. LGD, congratulations, you're already the first Chinese team through to Worlds, but Imp would like to add another title to that very big trophy case in PYL. He's been desperate to win locally, now finally has his shot.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be an LPL playoff game without a pause.
Godvi has Ghost.
And Doinby has Teleport. Welcome to the mid lane.
That's interesting.
Doinby, he did this a couple times, I think, in playoffs. He just loves the Teleport Lulu.
No, I think Teleport Lulu is fine. I think it's you can get around the map, you can just rotate.
They're worried about.
Yeah, you can go Swift around as well. You can just place a ward. But I think the biggest question mark is going to be that Ghost on Orianna.
You mentioned the move speed. That's what he wants.
Maybe he doesn't want a Ludens.
Maybe he wants an Ludens. Trust me. It's still the same player. But
it's more move speed.
I think that Teleport is actually a better summoner spell when you're against a control mage. If you're against an assassin or something like that, you go the Ignite to be the lane bully, try and shove up and really punish. But Ignite is always going to be good, especially against a team like LGD, who just move around the map so well.
They do have to try and kill that Kog'Maw as we see the teams lining up. Doinby hanging out there in the brush, but nothing crazy happening. Lots of neutral warding to start things off.
And lane swap coming through from LGD.
Surprise.
I feel like it was just going to be a standard predicted lane swap as well, though, is that Xiaogu, if they wanted the 2v2, they would have all in at level 1. That's the only way you can play that lane.
And Gragas Braum, level 1, is so good at invading. You take the Body Slam, take Winter's Bite, and you can just walk at anyone.
Yeah.
Because in the space of the Winter's Bite and the Body Slam knockup, it is so easy to get another 2 auto attacks in there from someone else.
You can see both teams have a decent idea of what's going on. Seems like V is going to be taking a camp, actually doing the
little
balloon,
ones,
or at least starting it. Yeah, going to take
the baby
some
sentinels.
Experience away. And we do have the Crux being started by LGD's duo lane, which leaves Acorn and TBQ together on the right-hand side, and Swift starting his jungle on the bottom.
So the good thing about taking the Sentinel is you don't have to burn the teleport early on in the game, and you still get level 2 slightly earlier. So we'll have to see whether V is able to utilize his teleport to good effect.
See Doinby and Godvi facing off, but a couple auto attack trades there as Orianna's going to win the very first level 1. TBQ is going to get his blue buff, does hit level 2 as Acorn. Sapped enough experience to hit 2 for himself. He's going to wander down into that 1v2 or possibly 1v1 as Brom's leaving the lane as well.
And we mentioned teleports, and irrespective of how much Godvi wins this lane, if you can match pots used from Doinby, then you've got the teleport advantage. You can accelerate your wave control, you can push them in, and you start to edge ahead ever so slightly.
You can see Doinby trying to get a bit more harassed down there, but we'll be chilling out there. Trying to get Godby as far back in the lane as possible, but we predicted the lane swaps here. Pui are still in the top lane for now, but once again, Imp's playing Kog'Maw is going to be completely unlocked in this game.
Yeah, PYL wants to make sure Imp is safe, probably also wants to level 2 and see if they can get the waves pushing into them before he goes anywhere else, because there's always the, especially because Swift started on the bottom side of the map, the risk of Swift coming up and using all of the CC out of the Gragas Maokai kit.
Oh, PYL actually going to get a bit aggressive here. Imp's going to turn on the WQ, will go wide, but V eating a massive amount of damage in the 1v2 as Swift and TBQ going to fight over the Scuttle Crab. No smites here. There's going to be all skill for this one.
TBQ level 3 as well. Has a slight advantage.
Swift! Oh, needs it. He did get it! Gets the crab away, but now he's in trouble. Has to body slam through all.
So worth.
So
very worth. It didn't even matter. He's still behind in levels, and TBQ actually gets a lot of knowledge of where he is. The assumption that, as you mentioned earlier, Spawn, he started on bottom, so he was most likely going to gank top around that time. It was good of TBQ to at least give awareness that he was in the area to prevent anything cute from happening.
As wow, V teleported into the bottom lane. They shove Acorn away. They're looking for a really quick fast push turret.
Apparently didn't like what was happening in the top lane 1v2. Xiaogu going to try and break the lane swap early.
They need to get a dragon off this as well, you feel, because if they don't, they've burned a teleport and top, wow.
Here comes the gank. TBQ flash there as well. Flash out from Doinby. Going to keep the distance out, but Oriana's going in.
Wow, nice.
Swift with a huge body slam as TBQ misses the Prey Seeker. Just barely saves his mid lane.
The smallest things in that particular trade actually get them out. Swift with the flash body slam and Doinby dodging the Prey Seeker by juking upwards as well. Manages to save his skin and has the teleport.
Yeah, double summoner spells used from Godvi at the same time. Ghost and Flash burn for that one. As TNT decides he doesn't like his health bar.
Nope, it's a couple tower hits.
What's that for anyway?
Does get the tower as a result, and Doinby teleports back to the mid lane. So a lot of summoners used early on, but again, breaking the early game up as soon as possible.
And this is something we mentioned though. You look at the beneficiary of this whole scenario, it is going to be Doinby because he can teleport back in. Spawn, you mentioned 2 summoners down for the Oriana. Well, you can see how this now starts to give a small advantage towards Doinby.
Yeah, have to see whether he's able to get, I was going to say, another shop in before they come back to lane. He would probably go, wow.
Roa? It's a ruby crystal.
That could be many things.
It could be.
It is a crystal of health, I would say, Rod of Ages. But I don't want to go too deep.
I think we saw Akon do this from the top lane, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, he did. It was also top lane.
Yep.
So,
and double Doran's Ring Roller in mid lane is also a really inefficient build because you don't get any CDR out of it. So it definitely could be the case. Probably will be the case. And I'll have a conversation with Frosk after the game.
Got the cooldown runes loaded in, mate. Don't you worry. As TNT and TCT have moved back to the top half of the map, they'll go into actually a 2v2. LGD lose their tower in the bottom lane, but decide to stay here.
You could just go Boots of Lucidity and have cooldown runes.
Yeah, definitely could. That is a possibility. But, ooh.
Got him.
I'm really surprised that they weren't able to shove this hard enough, LGD, to be able to pick up a turret in response. But now with standard lanes, making a Phage pick up, probably going to be in Imp's favor just because TNT needs lifesteal to be able to stay in the lane, whereas you've got an Alistair stomping his feet giving you some sustain so you can get pure combat stats.
You know what's funny though is because of the teleport into the bottom lane from V, it accelerated the push to a point where they couldn't match it, and he'd already had the wave frozen, I believe, or somewhat frozen in a neutral spot in the top lane, so didn't have the numbers, didn't have the damage to take that down immediately. Actually worked out for Xiaogu. Such a non-impactful teleport actually meant a lot.
Yeah, it certainly did. And now, with 5 caster creeps, I get to finally answer my question of what is more important early game, caster creeps or junglers? Because Swift is about to come in.
Swift has been waiting here for quite a while, but LGD might finally be made pay here. Swift's actually completing that recall.
He knows his plays, man. Caster creeps at this stage of the game.
They're dangerous.
They're brutal.
Certainly are.
Sleeper damage, that's what that is. You don't realize, then you're dead.
I think these players certainly know here. So smart move from Swift. It does waste a bit of time as Akon going to pop Mega Gnar on the bottom side. Level 5 getting awfully close to that 6 as TBQ was fishing for a gank, but V's playing nice and safe.
Standard V, of course, doesn't really want to die, and being in the lane swap position, the map's a lot more unlocked for junglers to come and make your life miserable. So smartly playing passively. So speaking of non-passive players, control mages are just duking it out.
They're going in Godby versus Doinby in the Lulu Oriana matchup, but yeah, just trading back and forth. They'll mostly keep farmers even as they can. And once again, we have to look towards that top side back in that 2v2. You mentioned it already, Spawn. It's just a lane where Kog'Maw has to feel comfortable.
Yeah, Kog'Maw's range just gives Vayne so much problem. And as we said, standing on the melees. Not even standing on range creep right now and just denying farm.
Oh my god, going straight in. TNT gets ignited. That might be enough damage. A great Unbreakable as he's forced to flash out. He's still going to die as PYL barely gets first blood.
He was dead. There was no point even burning the flash. He was not going to live through the occasion. He tried to get an auto attack to get some life steal in to keep himself alive. And now PYL chasing down TCT.
Yeah, so he flashed on the assumption that it was enough to actually keep him alive. That one auto attack followed by the flash to dodge the Kog'Maw ult. The end result, not exactly what they were looking for. And this is the level 6 advantage, of course. TNT and TCT, 5 and 4.
And Imp's got double summoner spells still available. PYL's got flash. TCT, get out of there.
Yeah, he's leaving. He's like, I don't really like what's happening. He's going to get out as Imp will get the tower and even that metric up there for LGD. Swift and V will collapse a Rek'Sai tunnel, but it's been all quiet on the bottom half of the map. And once again, that unexpected duo lane, ImpYL showing up again.
No dragon actually able to be taken as well, because that was a 2v2 that actually just gave them a kill. So no knowledge of where TBQ was prevents any kind of forward engagements for this Xiaogu side. They're left to just sit back and try and continue to farm whilst the top lane crumbles.
Oh, and he had enough gold for Boots as well as a Sheen. Even if they leave the lane swap where it is and freeze it out, there's no way that V can stay under that turret bottom lane because Sheen procs on Kog'Maw are just so brutal. LGD now in a very good position to be able to set up for that first dragon around the 11-12 minute mark once they've put a little bit more pressure down bot.
Yeah, Acorn actually has the teleport available as well, so he's going to go back up to that top lane and deal with this Vayne. He does want to teleport in most likely, and they should contest the bottom turret for free and then the dragon.
I think Acorn was expecting the Maokai to go into the top lane and not be denied farm because he's itemized a Hex Drinker early in the game. Not probably something you want to take into a Vayne lane.
It's actually good against everyone except TNT though, so it's
yeah,
just as much as a team strategy in terms of itemization as it is for the standard laning.
Might save his life against Swift.
Yep, he's certainly coming into the top lane now, trying to gank Acorn, but Vision is there. LGD going to back off their top laner. TCT is coming up for a visit as well, and Xiaogu going to try and trade objectives. Top tower for the first dragon, because LGD, this one's already gone.
We mentioned that they were going to go for these things, but that was so very telegraphed from that they were going to do it. Xiaogu want to try and... What are towers?
Him? Well, he's got a Maokai. He's got an Alistair that can come in, stomp his feet a little bit. He'll be fine.
Trample about and give some health back. An even trade, if you want to consider that against me. Not the best, but it still works.
Do you realize that that means Imp outdamaged the turret or went even as far as early damage goes? Yeah, okay, seems fine. Here is LGD. Going to bop down in the bottom side. Imp going to continue applying that pressure, and this Trinity Force is coming nice and quick. Again, sitting on waves. He's proxying as Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and the thing is that they had control over the bottom side of the jungle.
Doinby.
Oh, Doinby, I'm sorry. PYL going to get the combo in. Shockwaves there good as well. The Wild Growth's going to get all three. He's going to flash out, but TBQ's going to follow. Swifty's here. Huge cast as V rides in as well into TBQ. He will fall. Doinby is barely going to live, and Acorn a little late to the party.
Swift is a monster.
The fact that Doinby lived as well is just unbelievable. He took everything. TBQ reserved usage of that Unburrow to ensure that every single form of crowd control connected.
Would you say that's about a Ruby Crystal worth of HP as well?
You know what? Yeah. I'd say maybe the catalyst. Like, itemization-wise, things are doing well.
And the Motivators is coming as TBQ going to defend his Raptors against his mid laner by the looks of things. But it'll kick TCT out of that camp and we'll reset back to normal. So 2 towers to 1 for Xiaogu, but LGD have the first dragon.
More importantly, LGD didn't get bottom lane, and the Vayne's gone back and picked up a Trinity Force. So if the Vayne goes back to standard lanes now, Imp needs to be careful in a long lane. It's so funny to talk about it, but long lanes generally don't suit you if you're a Kog'Maw and you're against a Vayne.
Yeah, and to further that even more, now he has the blade that's still not the full Trinity. Very close, though. You look at the Rod of Ages that has been finished in this middle lane for Doinby. He's got that teleport too. Keep that in mind. They've got that double teleport option, so you may even see a 1-3-1 style of play, where it may not just be the mid lane in particular. They may put all of their efforts towards the long lane that is dangerous for Imp and have 2 teleport options available.
Yeah, search for a deep ward, see if you can turn a 3v3 into a 5v3. Use that to your advantage. Definitely agree that right now, QG arguably with more options around the map, and it was just because Swift was able to turn that gank.
And that's been the biggest thing for me. We talked before the series that TBQ is not a completely new identity, but he's improved so much, and it's come a lot from that ganking and that counter ganking. He's getting shadowed by Swift in the first 13 minutes of this game.
Yeah, because you could see it telegraphed so clearly. They were looking to knock down all 3 turrets at the same time. They had just taken the dragon, get rid of the wave clear in the mid lane, rotate around, take that as well, leave Imp down bot. Instead it all goes wrong. But the harass will not stop.
No, Imp is still playing aggressively. Every time that W's up, there's just nothing TNT can do.
Yeah, they maybe should have even just hard engaged.
TBQ's on point right now.
Really good counter
This
gank
is
here.
his style.
Yeah, funnily enough, though, we said that it was going to be TBQ counter ganking this entire time. He's been the one ganking, and Swift has been counter ganking.
Yeah.
And this is why it's been going bad. But if he can do exactly that, be ready to go, prevent the ganks from actually happening, then LGD are in a fantastic position. They did want to push all of the lanes down, get the big snowball happening. That was going to be the beginning of it, if that was successful. But Swift playing his best TBQ style actually turns it around.
It certainly doesn't. Akon grabs himself a red buff. That becomes a difficult lane for V, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, Malco's doing okay. Up in CS right now, building in towards that righteous glory, but TNT is the one certainly struggling. That blade's done, but he can't really do anything. Going to go back in as PYL. Didn't quite hit the flash button, I don't think.
No, I think what actually happened was that they walked back into Fog of War, so the W didn't go off, and then so he just slammed his hands into the ground.
Very angry.
In an impressive display of strength.
TBQ going to look for another gank, but Swift is still here. He's been reading these patterns
He's about
very
to
well.
spot himself now.
Oh, that could be bad news. PYL going to get stunned up
Not
here,
the man
perhaps.
you want to engage on, though.
Yeah, just
As
get
ulti.
slowed instead.
Teleport.
There's going to be a tally. Zombie might join in there as well, but Swift's now in trouble. He forced the
Double
custom
teleports.
away. Akon gets condemned out there as TCT. He's going to be kind of caught out of position. Gets a 3-man ulti. Great wild growth there from Zombie. V's going to join in now as well. They need a kill, but here comes Godby trying to line up the shockwave as V is going to charge forward. They've already killed him. There's a double kill there for TNT. Swift just pops away with a body slam, and Xiaogu come up huge.
Well, this is the advantage. Double teleport.
Came early, right there. That was unbelievable. The fact that, you know, the double teleport, you mentioned that, but in saying that, Orianna was always going to be there because they were cutting up the river. It's the fact that when Lulu did get there, the wild growth went onto these targets in such a perfect manner that it was comboed with the Braum ultimate from TCT. And just like that, Christmas for Vayne.
Well, it's the positioning that the teleport gave you. They were there at the same time. Lulu was on the carries. Orianna had no choice but to hit the front line because she was walking into the Maokai, walking into Swift, who did the do-si-do and swapped positions with her very nicely over the wall. But definitely not what they were looking for. And you could see that with Akon picking up the red buff, they wanted to go to a split push style. It was because Swift was patient in that bottom lane, camped out the brush, was able to get an engagement, not onto the best target in an Alistar, but it disallowed Akon trying to shove in that top lane and use the red buff to bully around the Maokai.
And even though it was not the best target to engage on, it still forced one of 2 spells out of an Alistar, which is a very high cooldown and very difficult to use champion when you don't have one of the 2 cooldowns because you are combo reliant.
Yeah, and the difference is Vayne, a lot of self-pull, the PL, the tumble, the condemn, able to move around the map. Imp, if he doesn't have PYL on him in this game, doesn't really have any peel for himself, has the Voidooz, but Vayne doesn't really care. She just goes towards you and destroys you. She's kind of even an assassin at this stage of the game. And TNT, even though he's 50 CS down, 2 kills, has that sheen. Has Azil working towards what's probably a Phantom Dancer, looking good.
Going to be very happy for that money. Certainly here is Xiaogu win the first team fight. Unsurprisingly, the team fighting team is finding those skirmishes or those 5v5s a bit earlier than expected. And again, it's all to do with that nice team play and possibly those 2 teleports as the gold lead is going to go up for them, but it's not massive here. LGD can certainly keep fighting, and Dragon number 2 has spawned as well.
I just want to touch on quickly what you just mentioned earlier, Spawn.
Oh,
never mind.
Gonna get aggressed on by PYL, looking for the shockwave, but Govi doesn't quite find it. Gets Swift there instead, with the Wildgrowth coming up as Imp's gonna be the first target. They'll jump straight on him there. He's got collapsed on 3v1, and he will die to TCT. The passive gonna try and find something, but Rek'Sai's already dead, and TNT gonna join late, but he shows up just about when he needs to scoop up the first kill onto Nah. Now PYL pops his ulti, but Vayne does not care with the Silver Bolt, and another double there for TNT.
Vayne is so good into Alistar also, but this engage, it was a very overzealous attempt from LGD. They actually tried to knock Joinby over the wall, but they couldn't get him there. He had the flash available. He gets to safety relatively quickly, and then the counter engage. Braum's ult did not necessarily connect on anybody, but it controlled a zone to the point where they had to actually flash to try and get to safety. Wasn't very safe.
And one thing about Braum's ultimate that a lot of people overlook is the fact that it has the residual slow afterwards. So even if you don't get the huge knock-up, it's still a pain to have to walk through. And you can see after that engage, Godvi, maybe one of his first mistakes I've ever seen him make with the Orianna, went for a command attack instead of just putting the ball straight onto the Maokai. And that meant, onto the... it was a Rek'Sai, so that meant that TBQ wasn't in position to be able to get the huge shockwave.
And all of a sudden, Xiaogu find themselves up about 4,000 gold and getting themselves a Dragon. We talked about them needing to start off in the early game, but these last few exchanges have gone very well for them.
It comes down to execution so much so that LGD are the ones trying to do all of these plays. Xiaogu, they caught the Alistar bottom once and they baited an engage that worked for them. But it was still a kind of counter-engage because they're just poking their heads around, forcing the go button out of LGD, and then turning the fight completely around.
Yeah, and LGD maybe need to be a little bit more patient because right now, their bottom lane CS discrepancy is 70. The only reason that TNT is still in this game is because they have picked bad team fights. If they had to just let that go, 60 CS is worth more than 2 kills at this stage of the game. Imp was still scaling better than the Vayne, but another bad engage and another couple of kills onto the Vayne, all of a sudden this is TNT's game to take over.
And you can tell where the focus is going there as well. 2 little team fights, and there are 3 people at least trying to dive out onto Imp, so Xiaogu have navigated well here, but they do need to pick up the pace perhaps and make sure they run with this lead. It's not enough to sit here. That is dangerous territory against LGD.
Not a place you want to be in. But, Xiaogu, you mentioned the CS discrepancy. I did not even realize it was that big until you mentioned that, because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like, based off these last fights...
Well, he's going to get to 2 items first.
Yeah, no, we still had the Blade of the Ruined King before the fights broke out. I think he was just away from that Trinity Force, just shy of it in terms of gold for Imp. So, though the CS discrepancy was there, the cost of the items, they were essentially fighting in an advantage for Xiaogu.
Yeah, they certainly were. And this is Doinby. He's just so tanky for himself. So
yeah,
engaging on him, no longer a fantastic option. Going towards a death cap as well. Lulu very much a big presence in this game. I'm not going to say it's the damage factor that you would expect out of a carry mid laner, but control mages, there's a reason that they're so popular right now. It's just because they give you so much around the map.
It's the Doinby special though. Just play as a tank. It doesn't matter who you are. He has the favors. He's played Nautilus twice, I believe, in this season to success both times. So interesting that he'll go for the Rod of Ages style, the top lane type of Lulu. Will make it work because he just doesn't die. And even if he's out of position, he's fine because he's a tank and Swift comes to save him.
Yeah, certainly had good impact in these fights regardless here. And going to be powering up TNT is the man to watch here over on Xiaogu. 4-1-1 with that Phantom Dancer now completed. And the items are coming in now for Xiaogu. Again, gold lead's only about 3,000, 3,500 gold. Xiaogu need a little more than this. But as far as starts go against LGD in game 1 of your best of 5 in the grand finals, things are looking good for the team, certainly.
Well, they are now. The start of the game was looking horrible. Already seen it work once because Oriana's positioning was into the 2 tanks. Doinby got onto the back line, and I think that is something they can use to their advantage. I also think that it's going to get to a point as soon as Vayne gets maybe QSS and one more item that they're just happy to pull the trigger on neutrals. Swift is so tanky at this stage of the game going towards the Frozen Heart. As soon as that is finished up, he's not even going to take damage really with a Braum stand behind him. So they just need to be patient at this stage of the game. They've broken the outer ring. They've got their gold lead. Now they need to force LGD to teamfight.
So it's patience, but it's also so difficult to execute now because now they're dealing with LGD, who are starting to feel comfortable again playing their own game. The Dragon should be free, based off control of the map. In saying that, probably not LGD. They are starting to posture around that a little bit, but something that I think is really good right now, once it's completed, is there is going to be a Zeke's Harbinger, you would imagine, from TCT as like his first completed item. He wants to augment this Vayne to just be unparalleled.
You really love that.
That's the best item. Come on.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but we'll see how it develops. Wouldn't be surprised, certainly. Saw a lot of it in the playoffs. But Dragon up now 20 seconds away. We'll see if LGD do want to contest, and the items have started coming out as well. Blade of the Ruin King there for Imp. We've got the Rabadons completed now for Doinby as well. And the tanky items are coming out as Godby.
Stealthy
just going to get away with that blue.
Ninja Man, able to get that.
Ninja robots, huh?
Yeah, Super Stalker Robot actually brings the blue buff into the bush. Swept the ward as well to actually secure that one. Didn't take the ward down, just took the blue. So smart decision making from Godby. Gets the all-important buff before the Dragon is even looked at.
And Rexa actually stealing one away on the other side of the map to deny that from Lulu. TVQ, nice counter jungling. They recognize they can't fight.
He's going to find him. That actually might prompt Xiaogu to fight. He's going to get the blue. They wanted to pull the trigger but couldn't quite find it.
So this is something that we actually do need to point out. Even though there's only one teleport on the side of LGD, the longer this game goes, the easier time that Rek'Sai will have with Maokai. Not really much pressure going to come out of that 1v1 brawl.
Yeah.
So TBQ might be able to answer the push that will come out of V, and then you just leave Acorn with Doinby.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible, and actually based off itemization as well. It seems to be the plan from LGD. They've got a lot of magic resistance on Acorn. He'll be able to deal with V and Doinby alike, and much more so than TBQ. So they put the one who actually deals damage with the person who can take it, in this case Nara against the Maokai, and then you put the tanky man, if you're looking to actually deal with the 1-3-1 if you're in a negative position, against the damage dealer of Xiaogu. So in this case, Nara against the Lulu.
Yeah, I certainly think that's something that's really interesting. And, you know, they took the Rek'Sai early in the draft, so it wasn't a deliberate, conscious choice once they thought that they were going to get double teleported on. But it does work out quite well as the game progresses. Right now, probably not the case, just because the base damages on V still quite high. But as you see the jet ski, as the game goes further on, you know, Maokai does fall off in terms of damage.
Well, with that, we are seeing again Dragon number 2 being taken up. Xiaogu got it a couple minutes ago, so we'll see it back up in about 3 or 4. But it's been pretty quiet, to be honest, between these Dragons, Smalljoe. There's 2 big fights in the first, say, half of the game, about 15 minutes or so. And right now, Xiaogu are content to play the farm game, which, again, could be dangerous against a squad like LGD.
I actually don't think they are. I think that LGD's just really controlled the map, and Xiaogu can't find a fight. You know, they went for the Dragon. They're trying to force them out into the open, but LGD have just controlled the wave so well. And this is the thing about LGD. Even though they got ahead, there's no way that you keep all your outer turrets up against LGD. And as soon as the mid and the bottom fall, which bottom nearly just did, it's back to even Stevens in terms of gold.
It's funny the way that that actually pans out is you look stylistically at the way that Xiaogu have been playing this game also is they want LGD to fight them. So the fact that they've slowed down and they're starting to play a more controlled style of game is actually playing back towards LGD's hands to get them well and truly back in this.
Yeah, completely agree, especially when you look at prioritization of gold. 30 CS in the mid lane, 70 CS in the bottom lane right now for LGD. If they hadn't given away 4 kills onto the Vayne at the start of this game, this one would be a very different story right now because of how well LGD have funneled farms onto the 2 most important members.
And as it stands, Xiaogu are trying to set up for another fight. You see a lot of pink wards from the blue side over around the Baron area. You've got TNT up in the top as well, going to push those minions out. But Acorn, always annoying when it comes to managing those side waves here. He was known for it on Samsung Blue. He's still known for it here on LGD. And again, breaking this defense. We've talked about LGD's offense all playoff because of how well they've been playing, but they still play really good from behind as well.
That's actually distortion boots on both mid laners right now as well.
Well,
That's
the
great.
reason that you feel that Godvi has gone for the distortion boots is because the Ghost cooldown is just so effective at running around the map. So, you know, normally he goes Alacrity for movement speed. This time, distortion gives him that. One thing I do want to point out is that TNT gone for a very aggressive build because he has the Lulu. And now I will question the Zeke's Harbor here.
PYL actually condemned into a wall, but they're going to try and start a fight here. Don't be a little bit out of position as V's looking for the flank. He's actually already ported in. And LGD, I think they know it. Swift gets a massive double body slam, moves Godby back into the team. But a Brawl Multi's coming out. The Shockwave's getting it lined up. Finds it onto 3 there as Oriana takes out Vayne. But Godby's going to get savaged there by the rest of the side as Xiaogu still fighting out an Imp. It does not matter as he's just dishing out the deeps. And LGD, they'll win this team fight.
Yeah, and that's the difference between 1 carry versus 2. As soon as the Vayne goes down, all of the damage goes with it. Godby falls, but Imp is still there to clean up.
And all of this effort was genuinely onto Godby. The flash engage pulling him towards the team, but he had the summoners ready to go. So he gets himself to safety, and now LGD are going from strength to strength. Imp comes in, cleanup duty, but TNT was already dead, as you mentioned. And once that single carry's gone, well, Xiaogu, they've got nothing left to answer it with.
And I know that TNT needs to do damage, so I respect the Infinity Edge that is about to come out. But when you are against a Gnar that can just flash ulti you at will, especially Acorn's Gnar, not going for third item QSS is going to be punishing, because you feel if he had have been able to stealth up, get out of that damage, with Doinby surviving for as long as he did, that could have potentially been a clean up for the Vayne.
Well, PYL going to get tagged, but he'll be okay. Does have his ultimate still. Again, QG trying to line up this Baron, but Dragon's back in a minute 20, and that gold lead
They just started the
start
Baron.
to even back up. I think that was an accident.
He just queued it and autoed it. I feel like
Doinby's trying to tell his team something.
Yeah, he's telling TCT to get out of the pit, is what he's telling his team right now. Xiaogu are actually playing a lot around walls at the moment, and I'm not a big fan of that with their team, because they're putting themselves in not direct choke points, but they're forcing fights in the choke points when they're on the far side of it. And not going to be ideal if Gnar is in the game.
Too many Victor games, perhaps, as they have started off the Baron. LGD gonna spot this out. They pop the wards there, but it's very low here. Can they get it? No, Swift will smite it away. TCT gonna barely live as Akon goes in there with a massive 3-man ulti, but now TNT's on the backlines firing away. Duke's out of the way. The boulder toss as PYL gonna run his way in. The Shockwave only hits the tanks. TCT still alive as he jumps in onto Imp. Xiaogu know what they want. Get the double, take it out, and the ace will be completed.
And the reason Xiaogu forced that fight is because Imp hadn't shopped. He's on the exact same items, had no mana, wasn't able to proc the Sheen as often as he would like. You can see him on your screen, does not look happy at all. Godby Shockwave didn't hit the Vayne this time around, and QG run over the top of them.
That was TCT right there. That entire fight, he had no right being alive for as long as he was, but because he had the Unbreakable up, TNT sitting behind him can just sit there and destroy Godby, move on to Imp, and this is all after Acorn dies to start with, and he's stacking magic resistance. He's only got the Randuins.
Yeah, let's take another look at it. They start the Baron up, and from there, even though TCT goes so low, Acorn doesn't get the Vayne. You wait for the Shockwave once again. It's just not on the Vayne, and TNT is going berserk on the right side of the fight by himself. No peel necessary. TCT eventually dives in there to die, but probably didn't even need it, because look at him, full health.
Just ridiculous.
My favorite part about watching that again is seeing TNT run around the edge of the fight after the tanks are dead to try and get to Imp, and the 100 health TCT uses him as a diving board and manages to tag Imp with his Q.
I think he flashed to do that as well, just to make sure the Q hit, so the passive was there. Xiaogu, they've just gone from strength to strength on the back of what was a fantastic Baron call to then get the team fight they were looking for. You mentioned the lack of items on the Kog'Maw. Having the Baron buff, certainly a big helping factor in that, and that was execution.
QG going to grab themselves Dragon number 3 and a tower down the bottom side with Baron buff still ticking away. TCT, the only one not to have it is Xiaogu. Have already got the mid inhibitor looking to close this game out. That gold lead has ballooned to about 7,500 gold.
Yeah, and it was just after LGD had got it back under 2. So definitely well played right now from QG. One thing they do need to be careful of is funneling even more gold onto Imp. He picked up a Phantom Dancer for himself.
Manly.
Yeah, really manly. Both AD carries, real manly right now.
I mean, clearly trying to outscale each other. Hard to say, but late game builds for both of them. It's just that TNT's team is the one with momentum.
Well, Doinby's got like a 1,000 health shield and ultimate on a 10-second cooldown for the Vayne. So you can understand why he feels so manly. He's also got a door to stand behind, but Imp ain't got much. Got a cow.
I think it's the I am behind in this game mentality of I still need to do damage to win team fights. So they just go straight damage.
Ah, the spawn special.
Yes, yes it is.
Guys, it's not going well. Trust me. This will all work out okay.
I will win or lose this game myself, thank you, sir, is what Imp is saying right now.
And look, that's definitely true of LGD, so I can respect the decision, but LGD have found themselves surprisingly far behind in this game. And Xiaogu just looking to move in, deliver the killing blows here and there. Mid's exposed, top and bot starting to get pushed in as well. LGD, they can delay for a while. That's something their team is very good at. And hat off to Akon there for that. But weathering another team fight is going to be real difficult.
Yeah, well, the siege isn't great, but the team fight definitely in QG's favor. So the fact that they can bait LGD out again in about 4 minutes when Baron is back up, that's how they probably win the game. It's very hard to run into an Orianna, and you definitely don't want to dive it.
And the best part is the base is already broken. They haven't had this spot where they're now stuck in the mud. They can't actually take down any objectives. They've got the Bear inhibitor that isn't up just yet, but I would imagine is not too far away. And also requires the attention of other people. So taking down objectives is far easier now. And they've got that double teleport still.
Godby's also in the bottom lane trying to deal with Doinby. So Xiaogu know they have a man advantage. They'll take the tier 2. LGD realize they have to constrict the area they can fight in. They are strapped up against their base right now.
Yeah, and unrelenting pressure right now out of QG. They've played this mid-late game so well, especially after the disaster start in the 2v2. TNT fell down, remember, one of those 2 deaths. One was a team fight, and one was PYL just going ham in the laning phase and taking him out at about 6 minutes in. So right now, QG definitely happy with how this game progressed.
Oh, and they realize trying to get in onto TNT.
So this is the danger of having Lulu down there.
Oh, this is so adorable.
Double TP. Don't even worry.
They need to engage on the 3-man unit.
They'll take out the tower. Akon's Mega Knight. He needs to be on the other side. LGD going to try and go in for something. They'll get Doinby, but V's going to move him out. It's a smart engage here on the bottom side, but the rest of QG are coming over. V is so tanky. Doinby's already popped his ult. He's out of there as Swift. Going to try and turn things around. TCT looking for a snipe there as well. And V, he's just still tanking damage. He doesn't care at all. Now TNT's in. Look at the ulti out there. Bleeding red now or LGD as TNT gets the first kill onto Rek'Sai. He's going to go off here.
Wow.
The shockwave gets flashed out there by Vayne. PYL's the target. Godby almost gets himself a kill. And Imp, he's still firing off. He's got the kill onto Gragas. Xiaogu got so greedy as Imp. He flashes forward. He smells blood. The slows there onto TCT. PYL is about to get sniped. And a 1-for-1 trade is a miracle.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's a miracle for QG. TNT once again on the side. This time, Godby was just laser focused. He was like, I don't care about anyone else but that pesky Vayne. But he made it work.
Well, you're talking about laser focus. TNT tumbled under the Nexus turrets to get in range of an Orianna who could just press Shockwave.
Yeah, so and then flashed out of the Shockwave, and went back in and nearly died to the dissonance.
Did not care. And that just goes to show, you know, both these AD carries building that tanky, damage style, want to be the big carry. TNT feels the need to kill Godby because the Shockwave was still available, but then you're focusing on the Orianna when Imp is still there, putting down this damage.
Yeah, and we keep mentioning 2 threats versus 1. TNT has picked up the Banshee's Veil right now, so that's a little bit better news for the Vayne, going to be a bit safer.
He's like, guys, don't worry. I bought the Banshees. Next time that happens, got it under control.
Yeah, don't need a flash. I'm just going to face tank it.
It's a theoretical safer, you know, like he could be safer. He wants to be safer. Chances are he's not going to be.
Yeah, this is definitely a playstyle choice right now more than anything.
Yeah. It's an aggro choice. The Banshees failers. They'll steal the blue buff here as well. Going to go over to Lulu. He's running herself in. That was quite a lot of damage from a good lens.
Void stuff.
Yeah, looking good on the damage front. You talk about carries. Lulu's certainly not a hyper carry, but no slouch on the damage front right now.
Yeah, the problem is
running in.
Oh, they're going to trade Baron for 2 inhibitors?
Baron maybe for the game, potentially. Not too sure, but LGD, they're going to commit. This is the call
Double
they've made.
teleport.
Oh, Doinby's going to come in.
Although
the rest of his team's there.
Not there.
This is a weird choice here. Vayne sort of caught out in the middle. The TPs are going to come back down here as well. and LGD are forced into a really strange corner.
V's stuck on the Baron.
What is V?
He's busy tanking Baron. As Swift gonna find the kill. Once Godby, they'll try and lock him down first, but Imp, he's doing damage. Akon gets condemned away there as he tries to wob. They're gonna take out the tanks as a front line. He's just going through the back. Godby is gonna go down. Swift gets ulted. PYL's gonna get picked off. Imp is left completely exposed. And another wonderful team fight as TNT cleans house.
V tank Baron, full health.
What was V?
And TBQ's done. He jet skis back to the base. He'll pop his flash, and Xiaogu win the first game.
Strength to strength just there, Xiaogu. The Baron fights is just their crux at the moment. They just destroyed LGD. It was a desperation decision, to say the least, to go for that Baron. But the double teleport, once again, actually shows its strength. And Xiaogu almost out rotating around the map.
I think that LGD will look back on that game and say, why did we play the first 10 minutes so fast? They played hard and fast, committed to 2 team fights, one in the bottom lane, which, okay, you can say that Swift set up for a very nice counter gank and was able to get positioning on PYL, who had to burn some things, but that at best should have just been PYL diving. And then going over the wall, trying to get Doinby back into their team, made a mistake of that. In the end, TNT got 4 free kills and just ran away with the game. We keep saying how good this guy is at positioning without farm. Give him 4 kills, he'll run over the top of you.
I feel like, again, they did accelerate the game too much, but they accelerated at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So no Trinity Force completed for the Kog'Maw against the Blade of the Ruin King of the Vayne. And that's the moment where they chose to team fight and give away 4 kills to a Vayne, basically trying to lose themselves the game from timing. It was very close, only the smallest margin between good and bad decisions. But the end result, bad decision.
And the QG are going to be the fighting team. Makes sense that they know when to fight as they do pick up game number 1. And again, we talked about it in the draft. Both teams, you have to say, will go into this first game and say, we got exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, exactly right. And, you know, I'm just looking back on the early game and credit Swift for the counter gank in the mid lane when he knocked TBQ onto the turret, because that was the point where LGD were like, if we kill the control mage, the Vayne has to go mid to try and deal with some form of wave clear. We will take all 3 out of turrets at 12 minutes into the game. Swift appeared, got the miracle cast, knocked 2 people back underneath the turret. Yeah. It was so beautiful to watch, and everything had already been used trying to take out Doinby's Lulu, who at that point had a catalyst and was just a little bit too tanky.
Went the tanky top lane Lulu style of build, and again, they played around them engaging on a control mage. Xiaogu played the counter-engage style, but they played it so well that it actually just favored them in the end. It's this desperation and, again, acceleration of the game from LGD on the wrong target and then counter-ganked perfectly. Swift got them through early game.
Yeah, and this is what we said that TBQ should look to do. Follow Swift around the map and just counter-gank. Instead, he looks to make proactive moves. You know, maybe that's PYL shot calling coming out a little bit in the early game, but all they needed to do was let them come to them. We said Imp had an advantage in lane. The Kog'Maw versus Vayne is a very good lane matchup for the Kog'Maw, because as long as you're not near a wall, you just stand and deliver and out damage. You saw that in the early game, and instead they just picked these weird skirmishes. And credit to QG, they won every single one of them.
Yeah, looking real good there in the first game. And for a little bit more, let's pop out to the war room.
Thank you guys so much, and a fantastic game number 1 from LGD and Xiaogu. We got to see a really entertaining set from that, and, you know, it was a very close match. From the beginning, it looked like LGD had the game they wanted.
Yeah, and we kind of expected this coming out of LGD. We talked about it. They're going to have to look for a lane swap, because the best case matchup for Xiaogu matchup is going to be in the jungler with Swift versus TBQ. So by initiating a lane swap, LGD hide their jungler, and they try to buy enough time for TBQ to catch up to Swift or to hopefully get another lead in a lane on CS, like what we saw with Imp.
Yeah, exactly. He did have a pretty enormous CS lead, but wasn't quite able to make it work in his favor. Now, we've actually got a replay ready for you folks of probably the second team fight in the game. You can see Imp rocking a pretty moderate CS lead at this point, but it really didn't matter.
Yeah, so the main point about this replay is that this is when the shockwave misses. And that's going to be the kind of big thing that you'll notice. The ball would be placed on PYL's Alistar. He'll go in and he really doesn't hit anything. And so naturally, since that's a massive cooldown missed for LGD, the team fight just goes in Xiaogu's favor. So we can go ahead and roll the clip. So there's PYL. He finds the engagement. Eventually, there we go. The ball goes over onto Alistar. Unfortunately, it doesn't connect with primary targets. And notice that this is a 4v5. Look where Vayne is on the map. He's not even in the fight yet. So here comes the cavalry. TNT, and just cleans up the back half of it. But this just speaks to the strength of Xiaogu. They are so good at playing from a 10k gold deficit. They've done it all season long against the top teams, LGD, EDG in particular. So you can never fight them when they already have a gold lead on you, even from a 4v5 disadvantage.
Yeah, we could see time and time again Xiaogu taking fight after fight. And, LGD, they did put up a good fight. They played their lane game. They got tons of CS onto Imp. They tried to get Godvi nice and far ahead.
But that's the important thing, though, is the fact that, yes, Imp had an incredible CS lead, but you have to think, a single kill on your carry equates for about 13 to 15 CS, so that 50 CS lead didn't mean anything on TNT's Vayne when TNT had 4 kills over Imp.
Yeah, we've actually got another replay ready for you folks, and this is about how Godvi tried to land that shockwave, and this time he was able to pull it off.
In short, the first one, the shockwave misses. The second one, the shockwave hits. So we can go ahead and roll this one out. Now what you're going to see is Swift is going to start out this fight. He actually gets an incredible engagement with the cask where, come on, Swift, you Gragas. Da, 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 da. Okay, he's going to belly bot forward, hits the cask, knocks PYL and Godvi into 3 people, but then Godvi just obliterates 2 people with the carries, in particular Doinby. Now, Lulu is seeing a big resurgence into the LPL. That's why it's her ability to wild growth and to reset a team fight. But at this point, LGD have already won. They've managed to scatter Xiaogu, and they don't have the resources in front of them to create the peel for the damage necessary. So at that point, LGD just kind of hunker back into their little rock formation where Imp is at the very back, and they just push forward and win the team fight.
Yeah, that's a team composition that we saw them play earlier in the split to great success. And, harkening back to last week when they played against Edward Gaming, it was Imp in the front, leading the charge for most of those team fights. That doesn't really seem like they can do that sort of play against Xiaogu.
Naturally, this kind of goes back to Juggernaut and Juggernaut's reappearance. And anytime Kog'Maw is actually standing in the front, I actually think the Juggernaut composition is more defined by your tank line than it actually is the Kog'Maw. But we're even seeing some variations in the draft phase. The fact that Lulu was the priority pick for Xiaogu in this particular game, which forced LGD to second rotation Kog'Maw out at the gate, simply because they can't allow, with the Lulu first pick, it said, okay, if we give them Kog'Maw, we know TNT can play it. We can't afford to give it that power pick, so we need to pick it now.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We actually have another team fight ready for you folks. I was trying to talk and I didn't have the microphone ready, so it's like talking to myself over here. But we're 30 minutes in at this point. You can see it's about a 3,000 gold lead. Still very close, but Xiaogu again have the kills.
And this is all what this comes down to. So first one, Shockwave misses. Second one, Shockwave hits. This replay is just about Xiaogu and when they're on even footing. In this case, we do see, again, another gold lead for them, about 3K. You can never fight Xiaogu in an even 5v5. I don't think any team in the LPL can. They're the kings of team fighting. So this already spelled bad news bears. We can go ahead and roll this one. The player that I want you guys to watch is going to be TNT and TCT. So Acorn does a good job, starting up the fight. Imp's actually in the back here. He doesn't have any mana, but that's okay because his W doesn't cost any mana. But here's TCT. He flashes over to the back, tags Imp with the Q, and then dies, but making sure that he gets the stun. Notice, Imp dies with both of his summoners up.
Yeah, kind of going to be difficult to win a team fight if you're not quite using all of your abilities at the same time. But Xiaogu, they're the team fighting team, and they were allowed to take team fights against LGD. And now with the Baron buff, they ended up pushing in.
Well, that just speaks to, again, LGD had a very clear-cut strategy. Lane swap, high TBQ, try to get an advantage or get a gold surplus off of taking objectives, off of CS discrepancies, and then use that gold advantage to fight Xiaogu on more their terms. Okay, if we have a 3K gold lead, we can possibly look for a 5v5. But again, Xiaogu, you just need more.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can quite get that because, going into game number 2, Xiaogu now have the momentum. They beat a team that defeated Edward Gaming 3-0 with the last win as a 22-minute set. They have got everything in their favor right now.
The one thing, though, is that they don't have blue side. Now, we've talked about this with Xiaogu. Xiaogu have a very high win rate on blue side, which speaks to how they understand their priority picks and what's important for their team and their composition. The red side win rate is significantly lower, even though that's an average for pretty much anyone in the league, but significantly so.
Yeah, we actually do have another replay ready for you folks. This is going to be that very last team fight. You can see it's only about a 9,000 gold difference when it's all said and done, but still, Xiaogu have got the game in their hands.
Only a 9,000 gold lead.
It's 36 minutes.
This replay, after this, LG surrender the game, and it just speaks to, again, if Xiaogu have any sort of lead on you, it's just incredibly oppressive when it's a 5v5. We can go ahead and roll this out. We all know how it's going to end. Swift leading the charge again. V has done such a fantastic job all game, making sure that he's on that Maokai, that he's in the backline, that he's absorbing and denying so much damage of all 3 carries. And meanwhile, you have this perfect line in front of TNT to just run through everyone with that Vayne.
Yeah, a lot of damage coming out from TNT and going up against Imp, who has gotten MVP in these past games and coming out relatively well in this set. It bodes very well. And to get back to that point, Xiaogu, they've got the momentum now. How do they continue rolling this forward?
It's a little bit scary. We talk about stylistic matchup when we talk about Xiaogu versus LGD. They're very clear defined and kind of with their win conditions. LGD, the chess masters of the LPL, very macro oriented. Xiaogu, the kings of team fighting, very micro oriented. They have playmakers in pretty much every single role, but they're facing across an all-star superstar team. I mean, you've got Flame, Acorn, Imp, Godv, PYL, all on that bench. But unfortunately, I mean, people kind of overlook Xiaogu's roster because there's some unknown names, but they were able to really step up 1v1 toe-to-toe with LGD.
All right, well, we're going to see how that happens in game number 2 as we toss it back to the desk